Hello, I'm Dave Peach, and this is the Crawfordsville Peach Cast, sponsored by Tri-County Bank, your community bank since 1892. See them in person or at tricountybank.net. Tri-County Bank, member FDIC, and equal housing lender. Crawfordsville Peach Cast. We are presented by Tri-County Bank, your community bank since 1892. We're also sponsored by Central Indiana Rubber. Power for you. Kurtis is here. Kurtis Broadstreet. Hi, Kurtis.
Hello, Dave. How are you?
I'm doing really good. You know what we say at this time?
We do. You ready?
1, 2, 2.5,
3.
Hello,
Todd.
Courtney, does it give you a special thrill to hear us say hello, Todd, during the Peach Cast? A little bit, yeah. That's as close as she's going to get to being on the Crawfordsville Peach Cast. So, Kurtis, how many bites will it take you, or does it take you, to polish off a half of a peanut butter sandwich?
Half of it. So, did I already eat the half? The other half?
No. You just no. It's like you folded it over. Like you had one piece of bread left, and you went half the peanut butter.
Let's say 3 bites.
I was gonna. Yeah, that's about me. 3.
Yeah.
Now,
you don't like shove it down your gullet.
Do you start in the middle, or do you go end to end?
So I'm kind of the person that goes for the better stuff. You save the better stuff for last. So I go through I probably go from one end and the other end and then to the middle.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a reward. It's a reward. I feel very proud of myself. I made something, and now I'm going to enjoy the better part of the sandwich now that the other parts, because I'm not the type of person that throws the crust away. It's still good. It's just not as better as the middle part.
What about the heel on a loaf of bread? The heel. Yeah. What do you do with that?
So the heel, it's kind of
actually the heel is on both ends. So the heel's at the top and the heel's at the bottom.
Yeah. For the most part, no. But if it's like I really want the sandwich and there's nothing else, then yes, I would go for, even though it's by far not the best part of the bread, but yeah, it's one of those things where it's saving money instead of, going for life's vices in terms of bread.
Now, you listen to the radio stations here in Crawfordsville, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you ever hear them? You ever hear the Chick-fil-A commercials?
Yeah, they have a very nice sound. It's my favorite part about the Chick-fil-A sandwich is not just the Chick-fil-A part. It's also the very crispy, succulent parts of the chicken, the breadiness. The Chick-fil-A sauce goes very well with the sandwiches. Yeah.
Now, but have you heard them analyze the different bites of the Chick-fil-A sandwich?
They go really like it's kind of fascinating because they're like a sportscaster. They're like, and my favorite part about my mouth going on the 38-yard line is the crispiness of the quarterback and the bread. And
I'm not crazy here.
It's made fresh right here at the Chick-fil-A. Yeah,
I'm not crazy here. I mean, we got people on Madison Avenue analyzing the different bites of a sandwich and putting them into a commercial.
Yeah, no, they're definitely more in depth than its competitors, because like McDonald's is just like, you wouldn't want.
Yeah. Well, and the thing of it is,
Big Mac only $2.99.
Yeah, they're more for there's never a price point on Chick-fil-A. Yeah. Never.
No.
I've never heard one where they go, hey, it's 2 for $5.99 or anything like that. It's just like, hey, you're waiting and you're gonna get through the line quickly at Chick-fil-A, and I think you know that.
Yeah.
I mean, they are.
No, have you seen those lines? It's very impressive.
Oh.
It's like when Henry Ford came up with the production line. It's just like that. It's very impressive. They have people walking towards you.
Man,
they have like 4 or 5 separate lanes. It's pretty amazing.
I was thinking about that. The analysis of the bites. You could just get another sandwich and do it all again.
Yeah.
Just if you missed that, I forgot the third bite was the most exciting one, and just give me another one. Try it again.
Yeah.
So you make sure that you savor that third bite. I think it's the third bite. It's like the second or third bite, right? That they talk about being the good one.
Generally, yes. They don't talk about the first bite because they're kind of getting like, okay, this is a sandwich, and the second or third bite, it's like, ooh, this is a sandwich, and then they go into the.
We actually have a guest today. I forgot. We have Brandon Gaudin.
We do have Brandon Gaudin.
Brandon Gaudin.
We're talking about Chick-fil-A.
And we're talking about Chick-fil-A, which is kind of Southern. I mean, he's the voice of the Atlanta Braves.
Atlanta Braves.
There we go. It's kind of a Southern flair, kind of a tie-in.
Yeah.
I just thought of that. Hey, there is a sort of a tie-in. Of course, this is the Peach Cast.
This is, yes.
And if you go to Atlanta, there's Peach Street, right? Or Peach
Street, Peach Tea,
Peach Tree Street, or is it Peach Street or Peach Tree Seat?
Peach Tree Street would be a little bit of a
Peach Street. There's a Peach Street in Atlanta, right?
I believe so. I've only been to Atlanta once. Yes, I've only been to Atlanta once.
It was a radio convention, and those are not necessarily the best sightseeing times of your life when you go to a radio convention and you go to a lot of seminars and all that. You have to kind of, and you're kind of in and out. It's not like, I'm going to stay in Atlanta 2 more days and see the sights. That's never done when you're at one of those radio. So that's why that was good. I like the one in Nashville because they kind of incorporated some of the Nashville life in the.
Nashville is the home of country, of some of rock music.
Yeah. So anyway, we got Brandon Gaudin coming up. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say so anyway. Yeah. That kind of mean. That's kind of mean. Kind of mean. So anyway, now back to what we should be talking about here on this very important Peach Cast, which ties into Atlanta, and the Brandon Gaudin is the voice of the Atlanta Braves.
Yes.
He's the voice of the John Madden video game show.
Yes.
You know the important lesson from the John Madden video game?
What's that?
Okay. When you are getting into a venture, always get a percentage of what's going to happen for years to come. Because John Madden took a cash out. Famously, he would have been far better to take a percentage because he had no idea. And of course, he's gone. Tragically, right after his documentary came out. But, he took the cash out because he wanted to get his money. Well, would have been better to take a percentage. Oprah got a percentage of her show, and you see what that did for her. I mean, all sorts of, so get a percentage anyway. But he is the voice of Madden and
EA Sports.
He's also Fox Sports NFL guy, Fox Sports Big Ten, college basketball, college football. And we love to talk to Brandon. We do it one time a year, and it is coming up next on the Crawfordsville Peach Cast.
You dropped your cell phone, the car won't start, and now your email has been hacked. Yup. Ever had one of those days? Tri-County Bank can help with a protection plan powered by Bazing. This is Bria French. Contact any of our offices to see how Bazing can resolve those big issues. Terms and conditions may apply. Tri-County Bank, member FDIC, and equal housing lender.
Crawfordsville Peach Cast, and we are joined by our good friend Brandon Gaudin. Brandon, how are you?
I am doing great. I'm in steamy Washington, D.C. today for some baseball, but the sun is out, so all is well, Dave.
We have been acquainted for 15 years, something like that. You were the voice of the Butler Bulldogs, and certainly some memorable years there. Moved on to Georgia Tech. I'll tell everybody what you're doing right now. Atlanta Braves baseball on television. You're the voice of Madden, Fox Sports, NFL, college football, college basketball, Westwood One. Am I leaving anything out?
No, I think that's pretty much it. Trying to put a bunch of stuff together to have a fun career in broadcasting, and certainly I've been fortunate and blessed to this point.
It all started in Evansville, Indiana, and I love the story. You know, like so many sportscasters, you're kind of looking for things to announce.
Yeah, I grew up with a lot of basketball and baseball and football and soccer being played around me. My dad was our high school soccer coach. My two older brothers were great athletes. I was a decent athlete. They were good athletes. I just wanted to do whatever they did. And so I got that we were always playing something. And then, the Braves were on TBS all the time in the 90s. And I would get home from school and I would watch the Cubs on WGN. And then, because they were always in the afternoon, they didn't have lights back then. And then the Braves would come on TBS at night, and I fell in love with the Braves in the 90s when they started having those great teams and winning all those games. And I would try to mimic Skip Carey, who was the lead announcer for the Braves on TBS, every chance I got, whether I was playing wiffle ball or make-believe baseball in the family living room. And that just kind of fostered a love for not only Braves baseball, but also the art of broadcasting, and something I always told people from age 7 or 8 that I wanted to do. And here we are 3 decades later. And like I said earlier, I'm fortunate enough to still be doing it.
Why do you think so many broadcasters want to be sportscasters?
I think sports is fun, right? Let's just start there. There's not the drama that you have in other areas of media. When you deal with news, and obviously we need people badly that do that, but you have to deal with a lot heavier topics. You have to deal with death. You have to deal with politics. You have to deal with turmoil. With sports, you really don't have that. Sports is a release. It's an outlet for people, and it's fun. It's a game, right? And so when I was a kid, not only enjoying playing sports, but I also realized when you watch sports, like, okay, this is a release from everyday life. And I think a lot of people gravitate to it for that reason. The same reason that people gravitate to going to watch a ball game on a Saturday afternoon or a Tuesday night, or they get home from a long day at work and they're like, oh, I just want to sit down on the couch and pop open a cold beer and watch a ball game. It's because it's an outlet for all of us. And so to be able to work in that field, you use the term work loosely because it does feel kind of like a candy shop job, if you will. And it's something I try not to take for granted.
Okay, now I've seen and I've heard broadcasters at all different levels, and it seems like they all put a lot of effort into the charts, knowing the stats, knowing the players, and all of that. What, and I know at your level, obviously, this is your job, you're doing this, but what do you think motivates someone at the high school level, putting all that time and effort into a broadcast?
Well, I think to do this at any level, you have to enjoy the preparation of it. And I remember when I was doing games as a sophomore in high school for my high school baseball team, the Evansville Harrison Warriors, a few hours from where you're from, I fell in love with the preparation of it. And, I knew I loved, like we were talking about, I knew I loved the sport. I knew I loved the excitement of big calls, and that's all great. But the act of going down to the field, talking to coaches, talking to players, finding unique story angles and nuggets, researching and finding a different statistic that maybe somebody else didn't have that I could bring to the listeners and the viewers. All of those things to me are part of this job. They're a huge part of this job. And you have to enjoy those to do this for a long time. I think, when I went to Butler, you could find out quickly the people who thought, oh, this could be a fun profession, but I'm not sure what all goes into it, versus those who said, this could be a fun profession and I want to put the work in to grind through the jobs that may not be as much fun to get to the one that I ultimately aspire to. And I think when you get out into the real world and you start doing those jobs, whether you're doing it at the major league level or in high school, you really start to realize that the work and the preparation that goes into it, while there's enjoyment in it, it does take time and it does take effort, and you need to enjoy that journey. And if you don't, you'll probably get burnt out pretty quickly. And I think the same thing for people that do local news, right? All those jobs and stops, if you're not enjoying going and tracking down the local story and market 162, then when you get to market 1 or 2, you're probably not going to enjoy it as much. And I think that there's really something to that. And I don't know. I just always found no matter what level I was calling a game at, that preparation, the behind the scenes work was something that I really dug into and enjoyed, and it stayed that way now for 30 years.
I know I've done some semi-pro games, and I remember the first year we had a great year. I loved the team and loved the team all 3 years, but that first year, something special. And then when it was over, I almost missed the preparation more than the actual game. And I think a coach sometimes says, I'll miss the practice more than the game itself.
Yeah, Brad Stevens would always say how much he enjoyed developing players. And I think that's what you're talking about, Dave. And I think that's kind of what I felt too. And the games are great, right? And of course, Brad Stevens, I'm sure he enjoyed all those games and the 2 national title runs and all of that. But he enjoyed developing players. He enjoyed having kids in the locker room that he could sit down and say, hey, I think you could become a better shooter if X, or I think you could become a better passer if you did X. And I think there's something to that for every profession. But yeah, germane to our conversation, that's really what I felt at a young age when I was getting ready for all of these games and events. And right now, before we got on this call, I'm updating my notes for the game tonight. And I get great joy. Maybe it's a sickness, but I get great joy out of trying to do that prep more efficiently each day and getting on these different websites that I use to read articles and update my numbers. And I always think, okay, can I do this a little bit better today? Can I do this a little bit more efficiently today? And that's just something that I don't tire of. Now, at some point I may, whenever I hang it up at 70 or whatever the case may be, if I'm fortunate enough to work in this business that long. But right now, if you enjoy what you do, you feel like you never work a day in your life, and that's kind of still where I'm at.
Okay, I'm going to go back to your time with Brad Stevens. You were the voice of the Butler Bulldogs in 11, 12, and 13 when Brad Stevens was there. What did you learn from Brad Stevens? And I'll ask my follow-up question now. That had to be the ultimate experience to actually see and be around Brad Stevens and learn from him.
Yeah, I looked at it as, sure, I wanted to learn more about basketball because I grew up in Indiana and I was a basketball nut and I played it. So I was interested in the X's and O's and I did pay a lot of attention to that. But I was actually more interested in Brad Stevens as the CEO and the person, because you could tell that he was something special from the time he got that job when he was, 30 or 31 years of age. And by the time I got there, they were coming off that first run to the national championship game. And that's when the nation really saw that this is a guy that doesn't come around very often, right? He's a generational type talent, generational type coach. And so what interested me more was, I wanted to learn about basketball because I knew he knew a lot, but I wanted to see, how does someone like him become that successful so quickly? Because there's got to be more than just basketball acumen. And I learned quickly that there was a lot more. Watching he would hold practices back then at 6 a.m. And I remember getting the job, and I said, I want to go to every one of those practices. That's what I told myself, because I wanted to show him that I was serious about this job. And so I just started waking up every morning and going to attend those practices, and he would come over and talk to me when they would take a water break. And I think eventually he learned, oh, wow, this kid's serious about this job. But I also wanted to watch him operate and seeing how he managed the players and how much respect there was going both ways, and how he would pull players aside and see how they were doing in life and at school. He showed that he cared about them as people, and he genuinely did. It wasn't an act. And I think that whole management of talent, no matter whether you're a CEO of Deloitte or Home Depot, or whether you're coaching the Butler Bulldogs or the Boston Celtics, I think what people like Brad Stevens have in common is that they have an ability and a gift to show an interest in people and really get them to believe. And I saw that from Brad day one, getting to meet him and then getting to watch all those practices and games. Yeah, he's got the X's and O's thing down. He's a wizard. But he's also just a good human who's a wonderful mentor to everybody that he coaches and is around. And I think there's a lot to that, Dave.
Well, and you both left us the same year.
Yeah, that was ironic. That was not planned. He left for a little more money than I did. But I remember he left. He announced he was going to the Celtics. And if I'm getting my timeline correct, it was 3 months after that that I was offered the job to leave Butler and go to Georgia Tech. And what attracted me about the Georgia Tech job was I would get to do football, and I knew that I wanted to add football to my resume. And at Butler, I wasn't really getting the opportunity to call much football. So that's why. That was the biggest reason why I moved on from Butler. But I called Brad and I said, look, I know that we are in two totally different workshops here, Brad. You left for a much more high profile, important job, but I did pick his brain on choosing to leave a job that you're happy in for something else. And we had a very good conversation. He was gracious enough to take the time to talk to me. And ultimately, I decided it was best to move on. But those 3 years, and I truly thought it would be more than 3 when I took the job. I never viewed that Butler job as a stepping stone. I was just so excited. That was my alma mater. You get to go back there and call games. And then the first year we go back to the national championship. And I thought, gosh, this is as good as it gets. So it wasn't something that was planned. And I know that for Brad, it was the same, but it was kind of ironic that we both left there after the same season.
And, and I look at you both as, but Brad went to DePaul, but he was at Butler, and you went to Butler and a Butler grad, but, both of you have just kind of marched to the top.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I guess I don't view it like that. I'm not just saying that to deflect. I do think Brad has got to the top of his profession, and I think I'm in a spot now where I'm just content and happy. I think there was a time, and Dave, I think last time you had me on, we spoke about this, and I've said this many times before. There was a period in my mid to late 20s, and I think a lot of people in any profession maybe feel this, but especially broadcasting, where you're too focused on what's next. And really, when I started to settle into that Butler job, I started to be a little bit more content with where I was at. And the future jobs came, right? The Georgia Tech opportunity, Madden and Fox, and now the Braves, all those things, they came naturally. But I wasn't scratching and clawing and searching for those things like I was in my early and mid 20s. I got to a point where I said, I just want to enjoy what I do. And I knew that I did, but I said, I want to be content with where I'm at and live in the moment and be present, as cliche as that is. And I think that's where I'm continually at ever since then, over the last decade. Is I'm thankful for the opportunities that I've got, and I'm really not focused on, because a lot of people often say, well, what do you want to do? What's long term? Like, you call the Super Bowl? I'm like, I don't know. My goals aren't necessarily get to this point. My goals are enjoy what I'm doing now and work darn hard at it and see what comes. And I think for Brad, I can't speak for him, but I really appreciate a guy who could get to the level that he did with Boston as the head coach and then say, you know what? I've had my time and I want to spend more time with my kids, and I enjoy basketball, but I want to be in a more of a management role. And so he steps out of the limelight and gives up that head coaching position. There's not many people that would do that. I think there's a lot of people that may say they would do that, but ultimately when push came to shove, they would miss that spotlight. But that's not Brad. Brad doesn't care about that. Brad cares about his 2 kids, and Brad cares about his wife, and Brad cares about quality of life and treating people the right way. And look, now who knows? Next week they may be celebrating an NBA title, which he'll get a ring for, and I guarantee he would say he's just as happy not being the coach and being in the front office as if it was flipped. I think that says a lot about who he is and the character that he has.
And I got to ask this question. Now, when you got the job at Georgia Tech, you went to the Orange Bowl. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was. Gosh, I'm trying to remember, Dave. I think it was my second season there. We went to the Orange Bowl.
I mean, you have to think, when you look back at Georgia Tech, I mean, that had to be the high mark for them in decades. And you were there.
Yeah, I was there for so you look back at Georgia Tech's history. Back in the day, they had really good teams, right? And then sort of Georgia became the have, and Georgia Tech became a little bit of the little brother. It's kind of like Indiana and Purdue was when I was growing up in basketball. You had Bob Knight in Indiana. They were always big brother, right? And Purdue was little brother. And that's kind of how Georgia Tech evolved by the time I got there, that Georgia was the big bad wolf and Georgia Tech was just the little brother that couldn't quite get over the hump. But I loved my time there, and I was lucky because, Paul Johnson, who was a football coach there, was so good. And gosh, we beat Georgia at their place, went to the Orange Bowl, beat Dak Prescott and Mississippi State in the Orange Bowl pretty good.
That?
Yeah, and so I look back at that, and now Georgia Tech since then has struggled a little bit. They're still okay, but they struggle a little bit. So you're right. I mean, I've been in some places that have had success while I was there that obviously I had nothing to do with that, but I was just kind of right place, right time, and Georgia Tech was another example.
Brandon, I want to talk a little bit about Atlanta. And, last year, such a great regular season, postseason, not so much, similar to the Dodgers. And you see them every day. How does a team continue to, do well in the regular season? Is there anything that they can do to prepare for the postseason during the regular season of baseball?
I think it's one of the things that makes baseball pretty unique is how the regular season is so much longer, right? It's 162 games as opposed to the NFL and NBA, which is so many fewer games. And then, so when you get ended abruptly in the postseason, it can feel so cruel. But unique to baseball is the fact that if you run into two hot pitchers at the wrong time and you get down 2-0 in, early on a 5-game series, later in the playoffs, a 7-game series, you can look up and you're gone. And that's what happened to a lot of the good teams last year in the postseason. And for the last 2 years for the Braves, they've run into the Phillies at the wrong time. And I think the Phillies are just also a darn good team that underachieved during the regular season the last 2 years and then flipped a switch in the postseason. The Braves' history, it's hard for me to say that there's something systemic when you think that really this postseason run goes back to 1991 when I was 7 years old. Ever since then, with the exception of one dry spell there in the 2000s and a little bit in the mid 2010s, they've been a regular in the postseason ever since 91. And yeah, they've only got the 2 World Series titles, 95 and 2021. But I don't know. There have been so many different leaders throughout that time that I don't think it's something systemic. It's maybe just one of those outliers where, unfortunately, they haven't had the amount of postseason success that other teams might have if they had been there that many times. But they have won 2, right? And that's a lot. There's a lot of teams in the last however many years, that is 25, that would love to have those 2 World Series titles. But I get it, and I understand the conversation. And, keeping it to the last 2 years, I think the Braves realized that they've got to somehow get past the Phillies. And so they made some changes to their lineup and their bullpen and their staff this year that hopefully will help them do that. What's interesting is that this year the Phillies are having the regular season that the Braves had last year, and the Braves are kind of having the regular season that the Phillies were having to this point last year. So who knows, Dave? Maybe it'll all flip, and this will be the year that the Braves beat the Phillies in the postseason and win the World Series.
Well, we look forward to that. Now, let's go to Madden. And, you continue to do Madden. I got to ask, are you ever invited to a Comic Con or whatever they call those gatherings as far as video games and such?
Madden always has a party at the Super Bowl, and they do a couple events throughout the year. And I've been a part of a couple of those, but usually those overlap with me doing other events. So I haven't really had the chance to be overly involved. But gosh, this is the 7th year, I believe, that Charles Davis and I have done the game, and it's hard to believe it's gone that fast. But it's changed since COVID, Dave, because we used to go down to Orlando every week, pretty much, about 35 weeks out of the year, those first 3 years we did it. And since COVID hit, we've done it remotely. We've only been back to Orlando once since COVID hit in March of 20. So it just feels much different. We used to see the producer, the engineer, everybody at the Madden studio weekly, and now it's all virtual. Now, I still have great relationships with them, but it's really changed. The model of how they're making the game and recording the commentary has changed. Neither one is, I would say, it's not like it's bad now. It's just a different feel when you don't get that in-person touch. So it's different, but still good, and I'm still really enjoying being a part of it.
Brandon, your thoughts on college basketball? Lots changed, transfer portal and players, receiving compensation and all of that. It just seems like every day there's something new as far as college basketball goes.
Yeah, we're in the turbulent times right now. And, your guess is as good as mine as far as where this plane lands. But whenever it does land, I hope that it's in a better spot than it is right now. Where it's at is, I'm not saying it's bad, it's just not sustainable. And you ask any coach in college basketball, college football, really any sport in college athletics, and they'll tell you that there's just not enough guidelines right now to regulate what all is going on. And, you don't want to over-regulate things in life, but when you under-regulate and some teams are doing things differently than others, and it kind of becomes a wild, wild west, and that's what's going on right now. So I just hope that whether it's the NCAA, some other governing body in the future, whether the Power 5 schools break away, whatever the case is, I just hope that we land in a spot where we've got this figured out, because it is hard. Speaking to the fans, it is hard to be a fan right now of a team because you're ultimately just cheering for a jersey and guys who come in and switch every year. And that's difficult. When we were watching those fun Butler teams for the 90s and 2000s, you knew that when a player came in, you usually had them all 4 years. And at the bare minimum, you had them 2 and most times 3 or 4. And you got to identify with those guys and they became a part of the program. And then when you have alumni nights, they come back. Well, gosh, right now these guys are playing on 3 or 4 teams in their college career. And it just becomes hard to have an identity with these teams. And I get the money. There's a lot of money out there and the players they're the entertainers. So obviously there's an argument that they should be getting a piece of that pie. I just think the current structure for it is unfortunately not sustainable, and hopefully they'll be able to figure it out here in the next 5 or 10 years.
And we could talk about this for an hour, but how that would have impacted the Butler Final Four team in 2010 if you fast forward to 2024, and we saw this with Indiana State this year. It looks to be, and I'm not saying that every Butler player would have left for another team, but there would have been that opportunity, and there was not that opportunity in 2010.
100%. Yeah. The story of Butler and the identity of that team would not have happened here in the last couple of years. And again, I'm not saying that doesn't mean that change wasn't necessary. So I don't want anybody to hear it like that. But at the same time, I will tell you that I don't think we're in a great spot. Now, sometimes to get to the ultimate destination, you have to go on a few detours, and hopefully that's just what we're doing now, and we'll get to a better spot. But yeah, if you're just asking me, do I think college basketball was more enjoyable for the average fan 15, 20 years ago? It was. And I think if you took a poll, there's no question in my mind that over 50% of the people would say they liked it the way that it was. So we just have to find a way to get to that point where money and compensation is still in the equation, but you also have some of the things that made college basketball great. Because I think right now we're getting the money and compensation, but we're losing the feel and what made college basketball different. And we need to try to find that middle ground.
Okay, final question. How great is it to go to a major league ballpark and call baseball?
Oh, I love it. I mean, yeah, that's what, like I said earlier, it's what I grew up dreaming of. And to me, all stadiums are cool. All professional sports stadiums, the architecture of them, I've always been in awe. Even when I remember on road trips as a kid with my parents, when we would drive through Cincinnati, I would want to look out the window and see the football stadium and the baseball stadium. I was just always in awe of all these professional stadiums and how mammoth they were and the players that played there. And so you fast forward to now, and I still kind of get that goosebumps feeling every time I walk into a new ballpark. It's all the little uniqueness, the idiosyncrasies. I was in Fenway the other day, and you look down and I walk through the tunnel and you think of all the greats that walked through there, and you think of the history in that place. But even in a place like Nationals Park that I'm in that doesn't have that same history, I just love the uniqueness of these ballparks and the different ways that the architecture is structured. And yeah, it's a thrill. It's an honor to sit in that press box every night, whether we're at home or on the road, and be a part of this, not only from a broadcasting perspective, but also feeling like you're a little bit of a part of the team, even though you're not playing. You're in the travel party with them. You get to see the day-to-day ups and downs and peaks and valleys, and you get to journey through this with people. And that's the rewarding thing of doing this as part of a quote unquote team announcer job.
Brandon, we thank you for your time. We'll be watching and hopefully see you at a game coming up maybe in September. I know the Braves and Reds play, and hopefully we'll see you then.
I hope so, Dave. You're the best. Always appreciate chatting with you, my friend.
That is Brandon Gaudin, voice of the Atlanta Braves, voice of Madden, Fox Sports, Westwood One, and we count him as a friend here on the Crawfordsville Peach Cast. Central Indiana Rubber Products provides the power for you. Central Indiana Rubber Products, or CIR, keeps farm equipment and local manufacturing processes running with gaskets, belts, seals, and O-rings, among a variety of other products and services. Employee-owned and always customer-focused. Central Indiana Rubber Products, 989 West, 83 North, Crawfordsville, and at indianarubber.com. Central Indiana Rubber Products, or CIR, power for you. A big thank you to Brandon Gaudin, our guest today on the Crawfordsville Peach Cast. This is his third appearance.
Yeah, his third one. His second one was the very first one I've edited, like as a whole, from the Crawfordsville Peach Cast catalog.
Should we send him a button, like a 3-year, a 3-show button?
I feel like we should give, because we have a lot of returning guests that go on the Peach Cast. They should get like a little commemorative item to be, because SNL, they do that. They're part of, like after 10 times they get something, or
like a jacket or something.
Yeah, like for if you've been a guest host like 10 times, you're part of this club. Yeah, I forget. I'll have to look that up later. But yeah, if you reach like a certain amount of times as guest host, you become part of this club, and you get like a little thing.
Well, let's start it at 3 and send Brandon a like a little button or something like that would commemorate, and we'll get one for Jeff Nelson.
Of course, yes.
And then we'll figure out how many times Jeff Nelson has been on the show, and maybe like when he's on, maybe coming up on the 10th time.
Yeah.
We'll make him something like a little replica of a peach with something like that.
Yeah, the Peach Club.
Yes, we'll get him. But he definitely, I think he's the leader, Jeff Nelson.
By far, yes. Because usually, like Captain Adam, for instance, it's
we'd have to give Captain a three Peach Cast button.
Yeah. Jeff, he's been on there. Gosh, like starting from June, which is when I started, about 5 times.
I bet he's been on 8 or 9 times. So maybe for his 10th, we could have get some Ben's pretzels or something like that. That's another thing. You were talking about Chick-fil-A, and before we sign off, because we got some time here, because in a podcast world, there is no time limit, right?
No,
you can go on forever. Well, have you ever seen the diagram? I think it's Ben's that does this. The diagram of the Ben's pretzel.
I don't believe I have, but I can imagine what it would look like.
Well,
how it goes really
each individual part of the pretzel has a name.
Really?
Yeah. So like, and you think about it, kind of going back to the Chick-fil-A bite.
Yeah.
But you think about that big pretzel that you get, and you have it with cheese or icing or whatever. The icing one is I'm telling you. Oh, boy.
I haven't tried that.
Man,
no,
that is good.
I may have
cinnamon with the icing. But each part of the pretzel has a little name. We'll have to look up.
So what do you call the curve? Do you know? Or
I don't know, and we're not going to look it up. But I think maybe
science behind the pretzel.
We could do that in an upcoming Crawfordsville Peach Cast.
Do a study, yeah.
Well, go over the diagram of the pretzel. From Ben's.
We may just have to, kind of like
I am getting so hungry right now.
I am too, especially with the pretzel and icing. I've never heard of that concept.
Oh yeah, the cinnamon pretzel with the icing.
Cinnamon. Okay, so not the salty.
No.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I guess you could get it
because sweet and salty is.
But they sprinkle it with cinnamon, and then you have the icing, and oh my goodness,
where are you getting these pretzels?
Well, you just have to go. Oh, they're out there.
That's not from the joint at the Ball Diamond.
They're going to be at Strawberry Festival as we tape this. Ooh. They're going to be there. Yeah. Oh, Ben's Pretzels is out. It's out there. It's out there. Woo. We're going to go get a pretzel. We're going to get a Chick-fil-A sandwich. We're going to analyze the bite. Maybe we could go over the underrated bite. It might be bite number 6 in the Chick-fil-A sandwich.
Yeah.
Maybe that 6th bite, maybe not the 2nd or 3rd bite, but that 6 or 7 bite of your Chick-fil-A sandwich.
That's the other thing. What's the average range of a Chick-fil-A? Like maybe
how many bites?
How many bites it would
do they
take?
have?
Kind of like the Tootsie Roll. How many bites or licks does it take to stick to? Which Purdue did do a study of. I thought that was interesting.
And I know that you smoked me in speed eating.
Yeah.
You ate a piece of pizza in 45 seconds. I couldn't get it down in a minute. One time we got to do the Coney challenge from Alice's. We'll do it mano a mano.
Okay.
On a Coney. If Rick would ever buy me another Coney. Rick didn't buy me a Coney today. Rick, he didn't buy me. He normally buys me one on Tuesday. I'm kind of like, the animal where you kind of feed the animal outside.
Yeah, like
and
I
kind of went outside and scratched at the door, waiting for my Coney dog, and didn't happen. So maybe next Tuesday. But coming up on the Crawfordsville Peach Cast, we will talk to Dave Meyer. Of course, the untoasted editions, they're coming up. But also, Kurtis and I in a Coney dog speed eating contest. And we will analyze all the pieces of a Ben's pretzel. Can you wait?
I cannot wait.
Come on.
Especially with how you're building this whole thing up.
Woo. Let's do it. Crawfordsville Peach Cast. We are presented by Tri-County Bank, your community bank since 1892. Also, Central Indiana Rubber, power for you. 1, 2, 3. Hello, Todd. Thanks for listening to the Crawfordsville Peach Cast, sponsored by Tri-County Bank, your community bank since 1892. Tri-County Bank, member FDIC, and equal housing lender. Tune in Thursday for a new episode on Apple or Spotify, and please like, subscribe, and download the Crawfordsville Peach Cast. This podcast was produced and edited by Up Their Media and is a presentation of Fork Broadcasting Digital. I'm Dave Peach, inviting you to join me next week.